Cut my mom off after she invited my ex and his new girlfriend to family gatherings while dismissing my pain. I was in a 2-year relationship with a jealous, narcissistic man who had a young son. Throughout those 2 years, my parents absolutely adored both him and his child. They even took his son during school holidays, treating him as if he were their own family. When I finally ended the relationship, his jealousy and control had become utterly unbearable. My parents were devastated by the split. I had to sit down and explain my reasons for breaking up, right in front of my ex. And during that conversation, he had the audacity to say, in front of both my parents, that his jealousy wouldn't have happened if our bed life had been better. I still remember the room going silent in shock. He actually said that. My mom, who had become extremely attached to his son, insisted on keeping contact and even offered to continue taking care of him during the school holidays. I wasn't really against it. The kid desperately needed stability and structure, something his own father never provided, since his son had been an accident and he never seemed to want him in the first place. Out of some misplaced pity, I even let my ex stay in the small apartment we co-owned, because he was still completing his internship and supposedly needed time to find a new place. But things quickly escalated, to the point where the police got involved. He eventually moved out 3 months later. And straight into an apartment with his new girlfriend. Since January 2023, I've had zero contact with him. Thank God. Fast forward to Easter 2023, and we're all sitting at the family table. Out of nowhere, my mom turns to his son and says that she'd gladly invite his dad and his dad's new girlfriend over to the house. I was stunned, genuinely hurt, and I asked her, why the hell would you do that? She just shrugged and replied, it's for the well-being of the kid, to keep things nice. Then December rolled around. When I arrived for Christmas, I immediately noticed my mom still had photos of my ex on display. It stung, but I said nothing. Later, during dessert, his son asked my dad whether he was going to drink the wine that his dad had given him as a gift. My dad told him he'd wait and drink it with him here at the house. That was it for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked away from the table, furious and deeply hurt. My parents came after me to talk. I poured out how utterly devastated I was that they kept prioritizing my ex and completely dismissed everything I'd been through, mentally and physically. My dad realized what he'd done and apologized, sincerely and immediately. My mom didn't. She told me, point blank, it was her house and she had the right to invite whomever she wanted. I told her that a family home should be a safe place, and that I clearly didn't feel safe anymore. So I left, and I haven't gone back since. In November 2024, she sent me a 2-page letter. There was no apology, just a suggestion that I should return to therapy. When I confronted her in person about all of this, she sat there for 25 minutes and kept repeating the same thing. I can welcome whoever I love into my home. So I walked away again. At Christmas 2024, her twin sister called and asked if I'd be coming for Christmas. I asked if my ex would be there, and she replied with the same dismissive line, it's my house, I'll invite who I want. That was the last straw. I cut contact with her too. She'd also developed a close relationship with my ex and his son. Now, I only talk to my dad. We're in 2025, and he keeps telling me I should get over it, that it isn't such a big deal. But the more time passes, the more I keep questioning myself. Am I truly wrong for going no contact with my mom because she chose my ex over me? Update 1. I had already talked things over with my friends and felt the solid support of one of my cousins, but deep down, I always questioned whether their honesty was genuine or simply a product of their care for me. Sometimes it takes hearing from people completely outside of your life to realize just how toxic a situation really is, and to get the validation that you're actually right to protect yourself. That outside perspective has changed everything for me. Now, I've even begun collecting evidence of what's been happening, because my dad, who's 67, keeps insisting that the family should get back together and have dinner, as if all can be fixed so simply. He tells me that my mom, 61, didn't take it well when I told her what she could or couldn't do in her own home, and he still can't wrap his head around why I've become so distant lately. I reminded him, perhaps a little harshly, that the real issue is either she refuses self-reflection or she's suffering from Alzheimer's. I had to spell it out. She made her choice when she decided to side with my ex over me. And it's not just me, everyone I trust agrees her behavior is unacceptable. Recently, my dad shared that friends and family don't really get my behavior towards them. I warned him, if he keeps refusing to listen, I can always go public with the whole story and let people judge for themselves. Who knows if that would be a turning point, but I'm prepared to try anything at this point. Some people suggest family therapy, others insist it would change nothing. Honestly, I'm still torn by it. Years ago, about 15 years back, we did therapy as a family when there were issues between my dad and brother. I might as well have been invisible. Every single session revolved around them, leaving me on the outside. I question whether therapy would now just help me confront them, or if it's healthier for me to simply go completely no contact and guard my peace instead. I haven't made a final decision. But all of this is weighing on me. Just a few months ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD. That diagnosis was such a bittersweet relief. I cried, finally having an explanation for my struggles, but I was also furious. My brother was diagnosed young and got all the support and care he needed. Meanwhile, when I had trouble in school, my family just labeled me lazy. When I was 21, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, which proved, once and for all, that my mom's years of dismissing me were totally unfounded. What happened next infuriated me and made everything so much worse. My mom learned I have ADHD, my dad must have told her, and then she took my dad's phone to message me directly in our private conversation. She said it's not new, that I had been tested at 6, and that I shouldn't make such a fuss. I was stunned, livid, and deeply betrayed. My brother got compassion and support. I was neglected and dismissed. That was it for me, the last straw. Any fragment of trust I had left was completely shattered. So now, I question whether family therapy is worth it at all. I've started building firm boundaries. I refuse to give them my new address to prevent unsolicited visits or letters, and I fiercely protect my own peace whenever I can. People say that my dad telling me to get over it just means he's siding with my mom, but I'm still trying to figure it out. Part of me thinks he's just desperately trying to avoid conflict. He has his ways, and maybe he's incapable of seeing the entire picture. Then again, I keep asking myself if I'm making excuses for him because it's so hard to cut out someone who's apologized and validated my hurt. I wonder if he, too, has gone undiagnosed all this time. To address another piece, my dad insists that my ex never came to their house. But can I truly trust him? For all I know, he could be twisting the truth to convince me to come back. Even if my ex wasn't physically there, it doesn't erase the fact that they might have invited him in spirit, or at least supported him in other ways. I'm child-free and had my tubes tied a long time ago. I work with kids and adore them, but I always made it clear that my ex's child was welcome, and I embraced that role willingly. My mom, though, always longed to be a grandmother. I always said my brother would be the one with kids, not me. Looking back, I realize she's been trying to fulfill her grandma dream through my ex's child. She has this savior complex, always wanting to save the child from his home. She knew about my ex's violent tendencies. I spelled it out for her, even showed her physical proof, the busted bed frame from his fist, the hole he kicked in the door, all clear evidence of his failing anger management. As for my ex's new girlfriend and his child, word is he doesn't let her get too close. My take? He's deliberately keeping holidays his, ensuring the child spends them with my parents, sabotaging any relationship with the new girlfriend. To this day, that child still spends every school holiday with my parents. A few months ago, I confronted my dad about another unsettling thing. Another woman, someone who had been dating my ex, reached out to me because something felt off during their brief relationship. She managed to find my contact through social media, and shared with me that my ex had told her he was emotionally wrecked over his mother's recent death. His mom is fine, I still see posts on her social media all the time, just one more manipulative lie from him. My dad was doubtful until I showed him the actual messages. I'm not sure if he shared any of this with my mom. It took 2.5 years of clawing my way back to build a new life after I escaped that relationship. I have found my real family now, with a man who is caring, loving, protective, a man who respects me and whom I can finally trust. Yet every time I try to set boundaries with my parents, I end up feeling blamed, as if I'm the problem all along. Update 2. 2 weeks ago, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. It was the secretary for my ex's son's school. She was kind, apologetic, and very matter-of-fact as she told me, he's running a fever and no one is answering. You're listed as emergency contact. Could you come? I stood there with my coat half on, hair still wet, feeling my stomach drop through the floor. I told her I wasn't his guardian, that I hadn't been for years. She replied, almost relieved, his grandmother said you were the one to call. My mother's name. I don't think I've ever put my shoes on so fast. The school smelled like disinfectant and pencil shavings. He was sitting in the nurse's room, flushed and glassy-eyed, his backpack slumped on the floor. He lit up when he saw me, my heart cracked, and then immediately looked behind me, as if someone else should be there. The secretary slid me a sign-out sheet and pointed to the box where my name was already printed in block letters. Under relationship, someone had typed mother. There was a shaky version of my signature at the bottom that wasn't mine. My chest went cold. I told them, as calmly as I could, that I was emergency contact in the past but never his mother and never guardian. The nurse hesitated, glanced at the computer, then at his burning cheeks, and quietly said, "We'll note it. Can you get him somewhere safe?" I showed my ID. I signed with my full legal signature and wrote not guardian, emergency only in huge letters across the page. I walked out with him leaning against my side, burning up and whispering that his head hurt. In the car, he said something that made me grip the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. Grandma said if you care about me, we can be a family again this summer. She said you don't have to be mad anymore. I had to swallow twice before I could answer him. I told him he was safe, and that adults sometimes say things they shouldn't. He fell asleep against the window before I finished. I couldn't take him to my place. I'm not his guardian and I'm not doing surprise custody by fever. I called my dad first. He answered on the second ring and didn't argue, just asked where I was and said he'd drive to meet me. He met me in the parking lot of a pharmacy with a bottle of water and a pack of kids' ibuprofen. He looked wrecked. He took the boy home. I drove away shaking and pulled over to cry 2 blocks later. That night, I emailed the school and asked to be removed from every form and contact list immediately. The next morning, the principal called me herself. She was careful, measured, and sounded tired. She told me someone had filled out new paperwork at the start of the year listing me as stepmother and had attached a permission letter with my name and a scrawl that wasn't mine. The someone was my mother. She had also given my phone number and told them I was on call. The principal offered to attach a note to his file that I am not to pick him up or be contacted without written consent from the legal guardian and suggested I file a report if I believed my identity had been used. It was as if she was talking around the words forged, illegal, wrong. I went to the police station. I sat on a plastic chair between a man arguing about a neighbor's fence and a woman holding a cat carrier, and I explained to a bored-looking officer that my mother had signed my name on a school form and tried to make me mother by proxy without my consent. He took my statement. He gave me a file number. He told me it was a civil matter unless money changed hands or a child was endangered. Then he suggested I talk to a lawyer. So I did. I spent an hour with a woman who didn't flinch at any of it. She drafted a cease and desist to my mother, my aunt, and my ex, telling them to immediately stop using my name, my signature, or any representation of me as guardian or step-parent in any context. She also sent a formal letter to the school to keep on file confirming that I am not to be contacted regarding the child. I paid her and walked out into the daylight feeling like my bones had shifted. My dad called me that night and asked to see me, just the two of us. We met on a bench by the river, away from the house, away from everything. He looked old in a way I hadn't seen before. He said he hadn't known about the forms, he swore it. Then he pulled his phone out of his pocket, fumbled with it, and pressed play on a recording. He had recorded a conversation in their kitchen the week before, when my mother didn't realize his phone was still on the table. It was her voice, clear and crisp. If we get her to take him just once, she'll come back. She can't help it. She's soft with him. Then his voice, flat and tired, "You're using the kid." A third voice cut in, my ex, lazy, confident, unmistakable. "She always thinks she's saving someone. Let her. Summer's around the corner." There was clinking of cups. My mother again, almost laughing. "And when the baby comes, she'll have to move on. She has to accept it." I looked at my dad and he looked at me like a man standing in the rubble of a house he thought was solid. He told me he'd told my mother to stop. He told my ex never to come to the house again. He said he'd moved into the guest room. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to stand up and scream and also melt into the bench. Instead, I told him I was proud he hit record. 3 days later, my aunt sent me a photo. No message, just a picture of a tiny white onesie with grandma's favorite stitched in gold across the front. Then my mother followed with a paragraph that might as well have been a knife. "You didn't want to make me a grandmother. Life finds its way. You should be happy I'm finally getting what I deserve." I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. Not we're expecting a grandchild. Not we're excited. It was a victory lap. Through him, that same weekend, my ex's new girlfriend messaged me from a private account. I almost didn't open it. Curiosity won. She said she didn't know where else to go. She said he had promised to keep the holidays just for the boy, and she was not allowed to go to my parents' house because traditions matter. She said the baby was due in October. She asked if he'd always been like this. I sat with that for a long time. I told her I wouldn't be pulled back in. I told her to document everything. I sent her numbers for resources I wish someone had handed me years ago. Then I muted the thread and put my phone face down. The only person I can save is myself. My mother's cease and desist letter was delivered by registered mail. My lawyer sent me the signature receipt. A few hours later, my dad called again. He said my mother had smashed a ceramic bowl and called me ungrateful. He said my aunt was ranting about me turning legal on family. He said he was scared for me, not because he thought she'd hurt me physically, but because he finally heard the part of her that doesn't see me as a person with a boundary. He asked if he could see me for coffee, somewhere public. I agreed. He showed up with a bound spine of paper, printed screenshots from his phone's backups. Messages where my mother had taken his phone to write to me. Messages she'd sent to my aunt telling her to invite him anyway, she'll show up if he's there. Messages to my ex calling him son. It was like someone opened a window in a house I didn't know was full of gas. Proof changes the air. I called the school again and asked them to add a security note to the child's file. Do not release him to me, do not call me, do not accept any signatures with my name unless notarized. The principal thanked me for being clear. She said the grandmother had called to complain about me and that they'd told her to take it up with the guardians. I felt like I had dragged a boundary across a field and finally nailed it into the ground. And then, because apparently this story doesn't know how to slow down, my mother showed up at my work. I still don't know how she found the address. She arrived in the lobby with a bag of chocolate and that brittle smile she gets when she's rehearsed a speech. She told the receptionist she was my mother and she had exciting family news. By some small miracle, my manager intercepted her. He told her he'd let me know she'd stopped by. He didn't. He walked into my office and closed the door and said, "There's a woman saying she's your mom downstairs. Do you want me to ask her to leave?" I could hear my heart in my ears. I said yes. He did. She left me a handwritten note at the front desk instead. "You can't erase us." I took a photo of the note with the envelope, date and time, and sent it to my lawyer. She added it to the file. She also suggested I file for a harassment prevention order if my mother tried again. I bought a portable door camera for my building and gave the code to exactly one person. My dad and I met for coffee the next day. He apologized without a but for the first time in my life. He told me he booked his own therapist and has his first appointment next week. He said he won't ask me to get over it anymore. He said if I want no contact with my mother, he will not bring her up when we talk. He handed me a key to a storage unit and said, "It's your things from the old apartment. I don't want them in the house where he set foot." There were old books, a blanket my grandmother knit, and the bed frame screw I kept to remind myself why I left. I put the box in my trunk and felt my shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. Here's where I'm at. The child's school knows exactly where I stand. My name is off everything. A lawyer's letter sits in my mother's kitchen drawer, heavy as a brick. My father has chosen to sit on the bench next to me instead of the table across from me, at least for now. The baby, if there really is one, is not mine to save or worry over. I don't go to the house. I don't pick up numbers I don't recognize. I don't answer texts that are bait. I am not soft just because I love a child. I am not cruel because I won't be used. And, yes, a part of me still wants to chuck my phone into the river and move to a nameless town. But I have a life here. I have a man who knows when my hands start shaking and puts a cup of tea in them without words. I have kids at work who run to me when they learn to tie their shoes. I have a door that only opens when I want it to. I have a spine of paper and a file number and, finally, the sound of my mother's voice on a recording admitting it out loud. Update 3. It was a Tuesday at dusk when the doorbell rang the way kids ring doorbells, too long and all at once. I opened it and he was standing on my doormat with a backpack that was definitely too heavy for him. His shoelaces were double knotted into little cement blocks. His cheeks were wind-chapped and he had that stubborn set to his chin that means he's trying very hard not to cry. He looked up and said, very carefully, "Grandma said you were ready." My body did that hollow fall the heart does on a roller coaster. I stepped aside, because the hallway is public and the air was cold enough to turn breath white. I got him water. I sat him at the table. I didn't let myself touch the backpack. He watched my hands like I might make them disappear. "Did someone bring you?" I asked. "The tram," he said, and then, smaller, "I know the number." I called my dad. I told him to come alone. Then I called my lawyer and told her, flatly, that a 9-year-old was at my table with a bag after being told I was ready. She asked if I wanted her to call the non-emergency line for me and I said yes. I made hot chocolate because the kettle knows what to do when I don't. He took the first sip and his shoulders dropped by a millimeter. "Grandma says she's tired," he told the mug. "She says I make her happy." I didn't ask about the baby. I made sure the door camera was recording. I kept everything boring, slow, soft. My dad's car headlights washed the kitchen wall 10 minutes later. He came in like a man walking into an operating room, steady, pale, hands empty. He looked at the backpack, at me, back at the boy, and said, "We're going home," with a voice that was thick but gentle. The boy didn't move. "She said you'd be mad," he said. His lips wobbled. I crouched so my eyes were level with his. "The adults can be mad at each other," I said. "You only have to be a kid." A patrol car pulled up 2 minutes after my dad arrived. The officers did exactly what I needed, nothing theatrical, just names, dates, a note that he had come on his own. They asked him if he knew his address. He recited it like he was proving something. One officer took a photo of the backpack and the label on the inside flap. My dad thanked them with a voice that shook. He took the boy's hand. At the door the boy looked up at me like he wanted instructions. I told him I was proud of him for telling the truth about the tram. That was all I could give that didn't feel like a promise. When the door shut, I went into the bathroom and sat on the closed toilet lid with the fan on and my coat still zipped. My lawyer texted to say she had filed the harassment order and the earliest hearing was in 10 days. "This helps," she wrote, meaning his unplanned arrival, the formality of a report, the line the officers already drew in ink. My mother beat me to it. She called my work again the next morning and told the receptionist that I had kidnapped her grandson. My manager sent me an email with a screenshot and a single question: "Do you want me to respond or forward to counsel?" I forwarded it. My lawyer asked me to come by and sign the affidavit she had drafted with every incident laid out, dates down the left margin like vertebrae. She stapled the officer's card to the back. She slid me a copy of the cease and desist receipt with my mother's signature, big, loopy, celebratory like a gift tag. The hearing was in a courtroom that smelled like lemon cleaner and stale coffee. Hard benches. A judge with a braid like a rope down her back. My mother wore pearls and that smile that doesn't reach her eyes. My aunt sat behind her with her arms crossed in a way that looked like she was trying to hold herself together from the outside. My dad sat on my side, 2 seats over, as if he didn't trust himself not to reach for me. My ex came in late and leaned against the back wall like this was a bar and not a place where people tell the truth under oath. The judge listened. She read. She asked questions that were simple and had answers that weren't. "Who filled out the school forms?" "I did," my mother said, proud, like she'd baked something. "With her permission?" "She knows she loves him," my mother said, which is not the same as yes. The judge's face didn't change. "Did you write on her behalf at her workplace?" "I am her mother," my mother said, like it was a spell that excused all trespass. My dad asked to speak. He held the phone I had bought him last Christmas like he was afraid it would explode. He pressed play again. The kitchen clinked to life in the courtroom, my mother's voice smooth, my ex's laugh exactly as I remembered, that smirk you can hear. The judge raised a hand and someone shut the door to the hall. When the part about the baby came, my aunt's head dropped as if a string had been cut. My ex stared at the ceiling. My mother tried to interrupt and the judge said one word, enough, with a tone that made even the bailiff blink. The order was granted. A year. No contact. No showing up at my work. No messages through other people. No more using my name in any capacity. The judge looked at my mother when she said the last part and added, for the record, that forging a signature is a crime, not a mother's prerogative. My mother made a sound that was not quite a scoff and not quite a cry. My aunt reached for her and my mother shook her off. We walked into the hallway and the noise of the building swallowed us. My ex peeled away like smoke. My dad put his hand on the wall and breathed like he'd just run. He turned to me and said, I signed a lease, the way people announce births. A small place near the river. He moves out at the end of the month. He said his therapist told him that choosing quiet is still a choice. He asked if I would help pick a second-hand sofa that isn't haunted by history. I said yes. That afternoon, a message slid into the muted thread from her, his girlfriend. 3 photos, a reddened wrist, a broken glass on a tiled floor, a police report with most of it blacked out but the case number visible. I filed, she wrote. I'm staying with a friend. He thinks I'm at his mother's. I sent her back the number for a legal aid clinic in a single sentence. Keep telling the truth on paper. She sent a heart that felt too tender, then nothing else. My dad and I met at the little resale place near the bus depot. He trailed his fingertips along wooden edges like they were old maps. He picked a ridiculous armchair upholstered in fabric that looks like bad hotel carpet. We laughed until our faces hurt. He bought a set of dishes that don't match on purpose, like a declaration. On the way out, he stopped. I told your mother I won't be in the house when he is, he said, meaning my ex. I told her if she invites him again, I won't come back. He looked at me like he was waiting to be graded. I told him he doesn't have to make me promises, just decisions. He nodded and some of the panic drained out of his shoulders. 2 days later, there was a package propped against my door. No return address. I took a photo before I touched it. Inside, there was a white box with tissue paper and, on top, a folded card with my name and my mother's exacting cursive. I could feel the lawyer's voice in my head, do not engage, do not respond. I opened it with a letter opener like I was diffusing something. Inside, a sonogram picture with the date and our miracle written on it. No note. Nothing else, just the ultrasound, as if it was a flag to plant. I slid it back into the envelope, put it in a gallon-sized Ziploc, wrote the date, and dropped it at my lawyer's office on my lunch break. Paper for the file. Brick for the drawer. The boys' school called last week to say they'd had a meeting with the guardians to update all forms for summer programming. The principal sounded careful again. She told me, almost cheerfully, that my name does not appear anywhere anymore, not even hidden in the margins. I thought you'd want to know, she said, and I did. Another nail in the boundary, another thing that stays put when the wind blows. My mother is quiet in the way of someone waiting for a new tactic. My aunt tried to send an email with the subject "We're family," and I let it sit in the inbox without a click until it slid out of the first page. My phone is boring. My door is boring. My life is boring in the kind of way I used to think I didn't deserve. Last night, the man I love fell asleep with a book on his chest and a half-finished mug of tea on the nightstand, and I sat in the dark for a minute and let the silence drip into my bones. I know this isn't done. Babies are born. Judges rotate. People test fences. But there's a piece of paper with a judge's signature that says my mother cannot cross my threshold, even in figurative ways. My dad has a key with a plastic tag that says "to be." The boy did not become my responsibility because love has soft edges. And when my hands start shaking now, they do it for less time. I can feel the tremor, I can name it, and I can put the cup down before it spills. Update 4. The envelope was the color of manila folders and dentist walls. It had my name spelled correctly and the kind of crease that means a machine did the folding. I signed for it at my building's front desk with hands that stayed steady because I have learned how to keep them that way. Inside, a petition. My mother had filed for grandparent visitation and temporary guardianship in loco parentis for the boy. There were glossy photos paperclipped to the back, him carving a pumpkin at their kitchen table, him asleep on their couch under my old blanket, plus a paragraph that tried to turn my old kindness into current consent. In the narrative section, she called me supportive. She used "we" when she meant me. My lawyer didn't blink. She texted back, "We answer, court again." Same air, new judge. This one wore her glasses low and pushed them up with one finger when something didn't make sense. My mother in pearls again. My aunt holding a folder to her chest like a life jacket. My ex on time for once, hair combed, jaw shadowed, eyes restless. My dad sat beside me and didn't fidget. He had a spiral notebook. He put it on his knee like he was in school. They called my name as an interested party. I said it out loud in front of a microphone that made my voice sound like I was speaking from inside a tin can. The judge asked one question that mattered and 3 that were there to make everything tidy. Did I want any role in the petition? No. Did I believe the child was unsafe with me? Not asked, not relevant. Did I consent to being named support? No. My mother tried to talk over me. The judge lifted one hand and she stopped like a rope snapped across a road. My lawyer put the cease and desist on the table with the green delivery card stapled to it. She slid the harassment order across like another playing card. She slid the police report with the officer's business card on top. She kept the recording for when it would count. It counted when my ex said he was always cooperative and always child first and smiled at the judge like he knew how to make eye contact during sales calls. My dad pressed play. Cups. Voices. My name. She's soft, summer's around the corner. When the baby comes. The judge pushed her glasses up and wrote something down. She looked at my mother and said, "Do you understand that love is not a legal instrument?" My mother's mouth did that stretch smile. The judge didn't smile back. The petition was denied. The judge added a line I didn't know she could add. Any future filings by my mother related to the child have to include a declaration that I am not, and do not wish to be, a party. Supervised visitation at a neutral center only, if the legal guardian agrees. No more kitchen table agreements dressed up as paperwork. The judge used a lot of words I had memorized over the last months and then added one more, and joined. My mother's face went still like paint drying. We left the building. The steps were slick with a fine wet mist and I watched my shoes to keep from slipping. My dad touched my elbow like there was still a time when it would be okay to take my arm and then he let it drop and said, "There's something you should see," like he was introducing a weather system. We drove to the storage unit with the plastic tag key. He reached behind a stack of dusty frames and pulled out a blue binder with a cracked spine. School records. Winter teeth marks on the corner. A page with my name, my birth date, 6.5 in the top right corner. A checklist with boxes next to words like attention and impulsivity. A sticky note in my mother's handwriting. Repeated 8. Likely typical. The box for follow-up scheduled was empty. I sat on the unit's concrete floor and the cold came up through my jeans like anger. My dad sat next to me and didn't touch the paper. He said, "I didn't know she never took you back." He said it like he was realizing I had been alone in a room he thought he'd been standing in with me. 2 nights later my phone buzzed at 1:12 a.m. with the kind of text no one sends unless it's the only thing they have left. A photo of a wrist, a bruise that looked like a galaxy starting, a case number typed under a police badge. Her again. He's out on conditions. No drinking. No contact. A second text, "Can I list you as a witness if he tries to say he's never been violent?" I stared at the ceiling and counted my own breaths. I told her I would sign a sworn statement summarizing my experience and nothing else. I sent her the photo of the bedframe screw on a white background with the date I took it in the corner. I typed out a clean, dry paragraph on my laptop in the kitchen under the hum of the fridge. I wrote the truth like it was a grocery list. I emailed it to her legal aid address and CC'd my lawyer. I closed the laptop and boiled water. The kettle knows more about me than most people. A week after that, my door camera caught my mother's silhouette pushing a stroller across the far edge of the sidewalk at the river, the place I sit sometimes and know where my bones are. The sound of a baby is not the same as a child. It's smaller, less accusing. He hiccuped and it reached into my ribs anyway. She stopped under the tree with a low branch like it was an accident. It wasn't. I turned around and walked the other way. I called the non-emergency line and filed it like I file everything now. Date, time, place, action. The officer said, "Good job, the way kindergarten teachers do when you show you can zipper your own coat." It counted. It always counts. My dad moved. We carried that ridiculous armchair up 2 flights and it didn't fit through the door until we turned it like it was an animal that needed calming. He made me eggs on a pan that wobbled on his first morning and texted me a picture of the egg like an abstract painting. The second-hand sofa doesn't squeak. The windows look at the river from the opposite side of my bench. He put new locks on the new door and stood outside and knocked 3 times and then let himself in with his key and looked pleased like a child showing he can do a trick. The school called me one more time, by mistake. New secretary. New list. She said my name on reflex and then corrected herself mid-breath. "I'm sorry," she said, and then, "We have it right now." I told her I was glad. She didn't know that a sentence like that can burn and heal at the same time. There was another package. This one under my door, not at it. The super said it must have slipped and then showed me the gap, the way it's possible if someone angles the cardboard just so. The return address was our old house, crossed out. Inside, a crocheted bootie, single, white. No note. I took a photo with my phone next to the day's newspaper like it was proof of life. I slid it into another Ziploc and put it in the lawyer's brick drawer. The hearing for the violation is set for next month. My lawyer says the judge will decide whether the stroller and the bootie are contact. She says we already know the answer. The boys' school counselor left a voicemail for my dad and, because we are all learning, he played it for me with the volume low. "We are scheduling a circle," she said, "about independence and safe rides and what grown-ups are for." She did not say tram. She did not say my name. He is going to sit with her and draw how it feels to be 9. It will help. It will not fix. Maybe it doesn't have to. I met the girlfriend, now the woman who filed, Once, briefly, in the lobby of the legal aid office because we arrived the same minute. We both looked tired. She was holding a folder with papers sticking out at the top like a ragged flag. She said, "Thank you for the sentence," and I knew she meant the statement. I told her my name like we were strangers at a bus stop, and then I told her what I wish someone had told me the day I left: "You don't have to explain why you're done to anyone." She nodded, and then she went in and I went out, and we didn't hug because not every movie has to play itself in real life. My father wrote his name on a lease and a change of address card and a therapy intake form. My mother wrote mine on envelopes and school papers and the outside of a package. A judge put her name under mine on a piece of paper that says she has to leave me alone. Every day I choose which handwriting matters. Some evenings I still put my ear to the quiet like it's a shell and listen for the old house in it. Some mornings I wake up and the first thing I think is, no one has a key to this door but me. My hands still shake, but less. I drink my tea before it goes cold. I walk the long way to the river, the path that avoids the low branch tree, and my feet know the route without me telling them.